Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. NFL action. We've got the Washington Redskins at the suddenly red-hot New Orleans Saints. Ralph, open it up on this one.
You know, Marco, the Saints have been very good to me. I've been on them this stretch. They're a team that I picked on. I do a New Orleans radio show each week, so I follow them closely, and I'm very happy with their success. But, you know, winning 7 straight is one thing. Winning straight with 7 straight, by the way they've done it, is a different scenario. All by 8 points per game. Average win 33-14, 19 points per game margin in that 7-game stretch. But what's impressed me about them is the Saints defense. They're allowing 216 yards per game the last 4 weeks. My concern is those 4 opponents were Buffalo, Tampa Bay, Chicago with a rookie, and Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers. Is that defense legit?
Well, that was the question in the exact way that I posed it last week in my write-up on the Buffalo Bills, because I thought the Buffalo's offense was the best that they were going to see out of what you just said. And they totally shut down the Buffalo Bills. Tyrod Taylor, such a horrible game that they're changing and going to Peterman this week, making him the starter. That was just announced this morning. So you look at the Saints team, and obviously, I watched that game very closely last week because, you know, I was involved in it. And what I saw from the Saints, and this is the difference, and this is what I've missed on this defense in seeing it last week, this running game of the Saints offense is what's helping to make this Saints defense better than it is. This is not the typical Saints style offense that we've seen the last several years, where they came on in the field, Drew Brees was throwing it all over the field, they're marching down the field quickly, scoring quickly, and putting that defense right back out on the field. Now they're having methodical drives. The running game, and Kamara is just, he's been phenomenal for the Saints, but they got Ingram as well. They're a two-headed monster. No wonder Adrian Peterson couldn't get any carries down there.
Couldn't crack the lineup, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. So now that they can run the football the way they are, and they have 2 guys that can, they're both fresh because you're splitting the carries up, they are keeping the defense off the field. And that's going to make any defense better when you're taking less snaps on the field, you're winning that time of possession battle, and that's been the key for the Saints, I think, with the turnaround on the defense. And yes, they are for real. They're going to have a better test this week with the Washington Redskins, but this is not an easy spot for the Redskins. If you looked at their schedule, this is like 5 straight big games for them. But what I'm looking at, and you did allude to, they've got, you know, their big injury problem this year was the offensive line. They had a lot of guys out on the offensive line, and they're getting some of those guys back. But physically, they've played back-to-back tough teams. You remember how I used to always talk about when teams play the Steelers and it's a physical game, how it's hard to come back? Well, they played Seattle 2 weeks ago, and then they played one of the best defenses in the league last week in Minnesota. Although the scoreboard wouldn't make you think that, right, the 38-30 game, but this still is one of the best defenses in the league.
You know, it's a situation where, you know, I know which way you're leaning with this game. And, you know, with the Skins, you may think their offensive line is back and it's going to make them a better offense. Well, it is. But the Skins' first preference is to run the ball. And this past week was the first time they had all 5 offensive linemen back since week 1 or 2. They didn't play the entire game. The center was in and out. He didn't start. He came in, wanted to know how he was feeling. But with the Redskins having that intact line, you expect them to run the ball more and take some pressure off Cousins.
Well, look at the last week was the most carries that they had in a game in the last 4 weeks. You go back 4 weeks ago against Philadelphia, they only ran the football 18 times. The week after that against Dallas, they only ran it 15 times. And then against Seattle, they ran it 23 times. Now, the reason that they were able to run the football a little bit more in that game is because they had the lead most of that game. So they were trying to protect the lead. Last week, they ran it 27 times. I think they'll run it more this week to try to get that balance to keep this defense off, you know. They don't want them pinning their ears and coming after them, you know, on 3rd and longs all the time. You want to get some positive yards on 1st and 2nd down. I like the under in this game. That's where I'm going with my best bet. And I think we're getting some line value here with the number being at 51. And the reason for that, Ralph, is because people are short-sighted. They look at just what they saw last week. Yep. So they saw Washington and Minnesota in a 38-30 game. And Minnesota's one of the best defenses in the league. So right away, okay, yeah, they scored 68 points last week. This is 51. And then they look at the Saints, and they put up 47 points last week. The Saints weren't even trying to score. Buffalo gave up so bad in that game. They were running the football the entire second half, and they're breaking off long runs for the touchdown, which made me quite happy because is bad. I had Buffalo, which was bad, but I also had the over in that game, which kind of erased the Buffalo play because we caught the over, and that over was just because the Saints did it themselves. Yeah. So I'm looking under here. If you look at Washington, all of their games but one have been lower than this total. This is the highest posted total since the beginning of the season with them. I think 51's too high. I see this game being around 45 points or less. I'm taking under as my video best bet.
Marco, I love the value. I love looking at false scores. You know, you look at the first downs in that game, it was nowhere near that. You look at the yards per play, it wasn't near that. And now you're getting a situation where teams are into the season, they know what they have to do, they are established in their identity, and yet we're getting value on the plays run per game. Marco's best bet, New Orleans and Washington under the total. And remember, 7-day all-access packages at Wager Talk, just $99. You're going to get one handicapper, 7 complete days, all the sports, including 5% plays. Dave Koken was with us earlier. He said he's going to have 2 5% plays. You buy them separately, $60. Buy a 7-day all access, just $99. Every handicapper, wagertalk.com.